Well. Here we are again, another broadcast of Real Turkey Channel with Atilla Yesilada, your loving presenter. We have another guest today. We're going to deep dive into Turkish politics. I have invited a friend of mine, a former banker and economist, but currently a member of opposition DEVA party, Central Administrative Committee. Oh boy, that was a mouthful. Mr. Ömer Gencal. Welcome, Mr. Gencal, or shall I call you a future member of the parliament?
Well, why not? It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure with you, Atilla. And thank you for inviting me to this, program. Thanks very much.
Well, I hope you can still thank me by the time we end this program, because I'm going to ask very hard questions, like when are you coming to power? No, joking aside. But let's, go back to your old hat before. You really are one of the top bankers, treasury specialists in Turkey, who has even been consulted by IMF. Tell me, where do you stand the Turkish economy going right now, and how do you input that to your party mechanisms?
Well, likewise, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I didn't change my mind about the direction of the Turkish economy. Why I'm saying this, I was insisting on 6 years ago that things are changing. Maybe we can back it to 2013. Why I'm saying that? Because the devil is, hiding with the details, in the details. So I was, dealing with always the macroeconomic indicators, and I was insisting during that time that there are some, major changes in the budget figures. Even though the budget figures in the overall picture was quite okay during that time, details was not reflecting the positive signs, giving the positive signs during that time. I was not only observing the detailed numbers, but also some speeches about the cabinet members. Likewise, Mr. Ali Babacan. Mr. Ali Babacan was,
who, by the way, is the chairman of the DEVA party, just for our audience. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Mr. Ali Babacan was, complaining about not to passing the rule of fiscal rule from the parliament during that time. He was, saying we should pass this, fiscal rule from the parliament. We should implement the fiscal rule into the practices every time. And I was a little bit, suspicious about these wordings, that why he was saying we should. Why he didn't say we will or we would. So after a while,
he
Turkish
also
economies...
was, once again, I'm sorry, just for our audience. At that time, Mr. Babacan was the economy czar of the AKP administration. Go ahead, just to make sure everyone understands. Yeah.
And after 2013, the government didn't, accept the fiscal rule law, and then go on for a while, and the budget figures started to deteriorate. Not only the budget figures. When you let the budget figures deteriorated, then the other macroeconomic indicators started to deteriorate too. So current account deficit, growth rate of Turkey, unemployment figures, inflation, budget figures, so on and so forth. All, these macroeconomic indicators started to deteriorate. There was something, suspicious in terms of, investing into the inefficient areas. Likewise, the construction sector.
Right.
We couldn't, see such an investment in the efficient sectors in order to increase the total factor productivity in Turkey after 2007, 8, 10, let's say. So, and then interest rates started to, increase. Inflation rates started to increase, but inflation rate started to increase, and then the interest rates increased because, there is a, adverse theory, even though the, Adam Smith,
which is only advocated by one person who happens to be the president of Turkey. I think
correct.
as a trained economist, I am qualified to say that. It's not a political statement. Go ahead.
Exactly. And then we started to, witness some, different kind of theories. And we started to see that the rule of law is sliding from our, floor. And then we come across, after a while, after a certain point, which you might, remember that we I was insisting that the inflation will shoot up to 15% levels in 2018. And you said, yes, we noted it. And then in 2018, we realized 24%, 27% inflation rates in consumer price index, in 46% levels in wholesale price index, while the exchange rate was shooting up at around 7.24 levels, depreciated approximately 35% level during the 2018. Since then, I was I have a view on the Turkish economy. If you're not managing the economy with the rule of law, by rules, let's say, waking up in the morning and saying, yes, there's a problem over there, solve it. And in another morning, without solving this problem and creating other problems in the economy, we're waking up another morning and then saying, there is another problem in that area, please solve that. It cannot be an institutionalized form of solving the problems in a whole view. So these problems still continues in the economy. So I didn't change my view since 2000, let's say 2014, that the Turkish economy is trending in a negative way, without doing anything at the first rank with the rule of law, and then the system, which we turned from the parliamentary system to the presidential, Turkish style of presidential system, just only looking a one-man mouth, that whatever he says is going to be the law. This is the current problem. This is the main problem. I remember that we had discussions with my father. He was saying, I was insisting on that the justice. He was a lawyer, by the way. He was saying that justice is a flower, my son. In order to flourish as flower, you need a soil. The major soil is to flourish that flower is the rule of law. Law. So there is no such a rule of law unless you have a law, unless you have the rule of law. You don't need to speak about the economy, education, happiness, sports, development, culture, whatever it is. So
let me I think
go ahead, please.
That point is well made. Mr. Babacan, the chairman of your party, I know you're not his spokesperson, by the way, and you're just speaking on a personal, in a personal capacity, not in view of the party. But he has been accused by both AKP and the opposition as being a member of the group that has started this deterioration in Turkish economic trends. He was, after all, for about 15 years, one of the close lieutenants of Mr. Erdogan and has been at the top economic positions. How would you answer this charge?
Well, as his, as per his speeches and his explanations, in order to solve the problems within an organization, you need to struggle, you need to discuss these, problems within this organization. He probably, showed huge efforts within this organization, within this party, within AKP. So we don't need to, fight with the past, fight with the historical, redundant speeches, discussions. We need to look forward.
Okay.
There was something. Yes, there was something. Maybe we can do some, genuine comments about ourselves, but we need to look forward. We need to stop something to discuss about the past, about the history, and make a peaceful agreement with the history and look forward.
Okay, let's look forward then. First of all, how does DEVA party fashion itself along the ideological spectrum? Is it a center-right party? Is it a conservative party? Is it a conservative Democrat? Or you tell me. I mean, yeah.
DEVA party positioned itself in the center.
Mm-hmm.
DEVA party doesn't have an ideology. DEVA party focuses on a human being and the development of a human being and the happiness of a human being. That's why we don't, struggle with the ideologies. We have a very famous quote in our minds that the ideology can corrupt mind and science. We are following the science, and we are focusing on to evaluate the human being in terms of happiness, in terms of development. Okay, that's why we don't choose any ideology.
Let's see how that translates into practice. For instance, HDP, it is accused by the leading coalition of AKP plus MHP as being completely affiliated with PKK. All of them are terrorists, just to make it a very simple thing. Where does your party stand vis-a-vis Kurds and their number one party, HDP? Should we just ban them from the parliament, or are Kurds equal with Turks, as in your view?
Well, institutions cannot be, accused, and especially the political parties shouldn't be closed. That's our, idea. That's our, values. Yeah. So individuals can be, sent to court in terms of their, whatever their, guilts, whatever their accusations, and we cannot say that this person is guilty unless he's, fairly judged from, the independent courts. So we're standing on whatever kind of terrorism is against the humanity cannot be accepted by our, let's say, ideology, our minds. So we are separating these kind of things. It is very easy to, accuse anyone. Likewise, the current, government wakes up in the morning.
Just to, elucidate this point, let me explain a small anecdote. Today, one of the leading journalists of Muharrem Sarıkaya compiled the numbers. There are 600 deputies in the Turkish parliament. 250 of them have been indicted by courts and stand to lose their immunity. So I suppose the movie Usual Suspects would apply to Turkish parliament. I'm sorry I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Well, whatever you have an opposition in your mind, whatever you making some commentaries about the policies for the government, you are being accused as a terrorist.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a politician. You can be a housewife. You can be a businessman. You can be a student. Look at the Bosphorus University, events. So I think there is no any passions from the current government to listen the opposition ideas, even though they are so friendly. They are, at a certain point, warnings. I can understand why it is, but it is very difficult to explain to the overall public that the current security is not the country's security, a security of somebody's or some small group security. In order to provide this, in my opinion, this kind of policies are going to be implemented by the government for an unforeseeable future, at least for the election.
Another question. Obviously, this is hypothetical, but as our audience might not know, nowadays in Turkey, elections are contested along the lines of alliances. For instance, AKP and MHP is the Republican or the Republic Alliance, and the opposition of CHP/EYP are the National Alliance. Where would DEVA position itself along this dividing line? Or let me put it more succinctly. Are you for the continuation of the presidential system, or would you rather prefer a well-defined parliamentary system?
Well, DEVA Partisi is the first party to start a discussion about the empowered parliamentary system. And our president, Mr. Ali Babacan, started to visit the other opposition parties, likewise CHP, İYİ Party, Saadet Partisi, and some parties also visited us. And we started a discussion to make a joint study, joint work to define the empowered parliamentary system. But this is not easy, as this system goes on like this. A leader who is entering into the presidential elections need to, give a
strong guarantee.
How should I say, a promise to the society that we are going to change the system via this way. And this study needs to be, this work needs to be studied in detail. We are working on it, by the way. We are going to
in unison with the other opposition parties.
Well, we are going to declare our study and start a discussion with the other opposition parties. And we are going to we want to agree on the least lines with the other opposition parties in order to move together. This is important in our opinion, because other opposition parties also support the empowered parliamentary system.
How would you made several times pointed emphasis that with Turkey we don't have the rule of law, and it is true. I agree with you. And without the rule of law, you really won't have a strong economy. That's what Daron Acemoğlu says. How would Mr. Ali Babacan bring back the rule of law? Because on paper, we have some of the best laws among the emerging nations. What is not working here, and how do you propose to improve it?
Well, this can be set by setting the checks and balances into the system. How these checks and balances can be set into the system is to make the actually separation of powers secured in the system. Legislation, execution, and the judiciary system. There needs to be detailed things in the judiciary system. We know that. There needs to be, reformation of the legislation about this system. There needs to be redesign to the execution, which can be, consider the overall stakeholders of the overall parliament members, likewise opposition, the government, so on and so forth.
Let me ask.
It is not easy.
Yeah. No, go ahead, please. I didn't mean to interrupt.
It is not easy, but we are working on it to define one by one how the legislation, how the execution, how the judiciary system will be designed during the DEVA party government.
Let me ask you.
To discuss with the opposition parties one by one in order to find how should I say?
A middle way, maybe.
A middle way, let's say, yes.
Let me ask a very practical question on that. Would you, again, this is your personal opinion. I want to repeat that you're not speaking on behalf of Mr. Ali Babacan.
Yeah.
Would you, for instance, support an American type of system where the opposition has some kind of veto or filibuster power on the appointment of high court judges? You know what I'm talking about. Right now, I think it's the president or the simple majority of AKP and MHP, which essentially appoints every top bureaucrat.
No, Atilla, we are not favoring any kind of, US kind of system. We are,
okay.
we are fully supporting the empowered parliamentary system. We are fully supporting the local management system, where Turkey is a very big country, cannot be managed from a centralized model.
Very important.
It should be decentralized. Again, we're considering the separation of powers and fully assured that the legislation, execution, and judiciary will be separated from each other with an independence.
Okay, well, let's get back to the economy, which is my and your specialty, also Ali Babacan's specialty. Again, specific questions. How would you deal with the central bank, and would he once again propose the fiscal rule?
Well, central bank, likewise, every efficient central bank monetary policy implementation needs to be independent.
Exactly.
Needs to be independent and secured by these independence, secured by the law.
Would that also cover the banking? Would that also cover the banking regulator, BRSA?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, my past experiences show this, very transparent.
You're free to tell or not to tell that story. It's completely up to you.
Well, there is no any hesitation that I was, move from my comfort zone from a, authority which goes up to the Ministry of Finance to quit from my, position during a private bank where I was the treasurer of that bank because of a speech that I gave to IMF in September 2019. But it doesn't important because I was giving these kind of speeches to IMF since 2015 twice a year. I am the guy cannot say lies. I have some evidence. I still preserving these kind of presentations that I can show anyone. where I was expecting about the economy. So this, central bank independence so important in order to make the monetary policy credible, trusted, and implemented by an independent body, where foreseeable for everybody, not for a certain group, from household to business area, business people, in order to make them invested, in order to make them working efficiently. So the first priority for a central bank is to set the confidence and trust into the society. There is a famous word, there is a famous quote I always use in my presentations: trust, like a soul, never returns the same body when it's gone.
Yes, you shared it in Twitter as well. How about the fiscal rule or something similar? I mean, right now, we don't even know how the damn budget is spent because the High Court of Auditors are not permitted to audit the budget.
Well, actually, the monetary policy is not sufficient its own, unless there would be such a loose fiscal policy. If there will be such an independent central bank cannot refrain itself to hike the interest rates up to a certain level in order to cool down the economy. There needs to be a synchronization within the fiscal rule and the monetary policy. So in our mind, this is a preliminary discussion, I should say. This is not certain, but central bank can also makes its estimations about the growth rate to the public.
Right.
In order to make a checks and balance to the government. Central bank needs to make work the transmission mechanism and use the communication tool with the society in order to make the monetary policy efficient. But it is not sufficient to do that, to cool down the economy, to make the price levels controlled or the inflation in track or targeted inflation to be achieved. There needs to be synchronization with the treasury in order to make these fiscal policy and the monetary policy synchronized at the same level in order to achieve a growth rate, potential growth rate for a country. In order to make these policies efficiently, there needs to be transparency, there needs to be some rule of law, there needs to be rule of law, which I mean that the central bank governor to be assigned to that duty for a certain time, likewise 5 years, and unless he's failing to achieve the level of inflation rate, let's say 2 years, consequently 2 years, other than that, there is no any rule or law to make him dismissed from his position by the politicians.
Last question. Reforms. You said it's important to increase total factor productivity, which I presume, again, if I'm wrong, correct me, would require structural reforms, whether on the the politics side or economy side. What would be the top 3 reforms that would have immediacy or urgency for DEVA party, if and when it becomes either the governing party or part of the governing coalition?
The growth model, the first one, it should be coming from not planned by the central government, there needs to be local, participation to the growth. Unemployment, there needs to be, major reforms performed this area, and inflation.
So, devolution of power.
These micro.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Once again.
Judicial power, yeah.
Yeah, devolution of power, disinflation, and labor market reform. Am I correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, do you still thank me for inviting you?
Yes. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure with you.
It has been my pleasure.
There are a huge amount of things that we can discuss further, Atilla. So it was a pleasure to discuss with you. So we can continue for discussing these kind of things, to explain ourselves, to explain DEVA party and its policies and his thoughts to the public and to our friends.
Well, we're a small conduit, but we, as you know, we're open to all political philosophies as long as they're nonviolent. And I want to thank my good friend and currently one of the leading members of the opposition DEVA party, Mr. Ömer Gencal, for his participation in the Real Turkey channel show. Thank you very much once again, Ömer. And this is Atilla Yesilada once again saying goodbye from a rainy Istanbul.